You know what? What can one of these quarterbacks or wide receivers do for me this year to make a wager? It's got to be the running conditions there for Jaden Daniels.
In regards to Jaden Daniels, you know I was on him in regards to the Heisman Trophy. I actually think he's going to do it on the ground, through the air, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, playing in Cliff Kingsbury's offense where he wants to spread it and throw it. I think he's going to put up dynamic numbers.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Another upset in the NFL on Monday Night Football. We'll get to that in just a minute. Thanks for tuning into the show. What a wild week it was in the National Football League. Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News will weigh in on all of the results. In addition, we've got Adam Kaufman to give us a little bit of a preview with the Thursday night game just around the corner. In addition, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report, all your sports betting news, notes, information, and of course, wagering information coming on across the country. We deliver that to you each and every day here at 11 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on SportsGrid. That's where we'll begin with a news story today. And we begin with Major League Baseball, but not the league. This time it's the players, the MLBPA. The Players Association is suing DraftKings and FanDuel on Monday, accusing the sports betting companies and 2 others of using the names and likenesses of hundreds of players on their platform without asking for permission. So the Players Union seeking compensatory and punitive damages from these companies: DraftKings, Britain's Bet365 Group in Philadelphia court, and from FanDuel and Underdog Fantasy in a New York state court in Manhattan. So essentially, what does it mean? Sports books and fantasy companies using name and likeness of players without getting their permission. And so here is the statement from the Players Association. For professional athletes, the ability to control the commercial use of their names, images, and likenesses is a crucial return on their substantial career investment. And whether or not you agree or disagree with the statement is sort of irrelevant. If they don't have permission to use the players, then they're going to have to either gain permission or pay some punitive damages here. I think MLBPA may have a case, indeed, in this matter. The Carolina Panthers made their case to change quarterbacks. It was a really easy one. Bryce Young has had a really tough time since being drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Lowest rated quarterback in the National Football League. They keep losing games over and over again. I believe he's 2-16 in his last 18 games he has appeared. And so the Panthers have made their decision to go to none other than one of those ageless backup wonders in the National Football League. Yes, Andy Dalton is back at starting quarterback in the National Football League. It feels like he's been in the league 20 years. If I had to look it up, I would guess that's probably close to accurate. and he'll take over and's got a tough test. They got to go play the Raiders this week on the road. Raiders played very well against the Baltimore Ravens. Head coach of the Panthers, Dave Canales, talks about the move to the Red Rifle.
Bryce is our quarterback. I'd love to see this thing just continue to take the next steps offensively right now.
Will he start next week?
Bryce is our quarterback. We're going to just continue to shore up and fix the things we need to fundamentally from a scheme standpoint. All those things. These are all valuable reps. These are all valuable games. We'll learn a lot from this game, and hopefully we'll take another step this week. You know, after yesterday, just went home, watched the film, had some conversations with coaches, with Dan Brandt. So had to gather a lot of information through this morning and made that decision after looking at it that this is the best decision for our group, for our team going forward. Yeah, there's a lot of factors. We want to play more football. A lot of factors that go into it, for this decision, and ultimately just kind of lands on my shoulders to be able to make the best decision for our group to give us our best chance to win this week. And we focus on the weeks. We focus on the challenge at hand, and we feel like Andy gives us our best chance to meet the challenge.
I think that going from 12 hours, 24 hours later, I feel like we needed that SpongeBob meme in there also as well. And by the way, let's read between the lines here. Make no mistake about it. Dave Canales probably not making that decision. General manager, owner, someone else stepping in, telling him to make the decision. Andy Dalton's back. Pick him up in fantasy, if you dare. Atlanta Falcons, another team against the spread as an underdog, winning the game outright. That's exactly what the NFL has been through 2 weeks of the season, folks. Make no mistake about it. If the last 2 weeks you bet all the underdogs, you could go out to a nice dinner tonight. 22-21, Falcons beat the Eagles. Couple of things went wrong for the Eagles. Dropped the ball late. Also didn't try and kick a field goal at one point when they had an easy one. Didn't get a fourth down. Sort of some bizarre play calling, to say the least, as certainly the Eagles right now are one of those teams that definitely need to pick up some pieces, and the Atlanta Falcons are flying high.
We wanted to. They were running a certain defense and junking it up in the middle. So we're trying to go around the outside, and it didn't work.
What was your thought pattern there on going kicking the field goal 4-3? Did you think about going for it?
Again, in that scenario, I was thinking they might not have any timeouts there, but obviously they did with the incomplete pass. That would have came down to maybe a minute, and so we wanted to go up 6 points, and it didn't work. So, the decision to pass it there, again, like I said, where they were junking it up inside, with it being 4th and 3 to go for it, I thought, with them not having any timeouts, I wanted them to be down a touchdown and see if they could drive the field, and they did. Hats off to them.
Yeah, bottom line, another loss for the Philadelphia Eagles, and another disappointing loss if you date back to last year. I guess they're fortunate, you could say, to be 1-1, honestly, in the season. All right, let's go and hit on Cooper Kupp and the injuries to the National Football League. There are a ton. First two guys are my first two receivers in fantasy football. I know nobody wants to hear me talk about my fantasy team, but I'm a Cooper Kupp guy. I'm a Deebo Samuel guy. What am I going to do this week? I have no idea. Cooper Kupp going to be probably placed on injury reserve, would be a guess from me. I don't know that as a fact. We'll find out tomorrow. And then yesterday, out of nowhere, late in the day, Kyle Shanahan comes out and says Deebo Samuel's got a calf strain. Oh, by the way, he's going to miss 2 weeks. So he is out for the 49ers. And so is Christian McCaffrey. And the 49ers are already in trouble this early on in the season. But you know what? They're not the only ones. Adam Kaufman's going to join us. Ton of injuries at this point of the season. Also, Jawan Bentley, who has totaled more than 100 tackles each of the past 3 seasons, tore his left pectoral muscle. He's on the Patriots. He's expected to miss a lot of time. Usually this is season ending. Also, Graham Gano, the Giants went into the game with a hurt kicker, and guess what? He got hurt in the game. Shocker. Graham Gano going to miss a few weeks. Maybe the Giants will have a kicker this week and can kick field goals. They're 0-2. All right, quarterback changes across the board, especially with Michigan and Wisconsin. So let's get to those. Sharon Moore makes a big announcement yesterday. Alex Orji is going to be at the helm at starting quarterback for the Wolverines. They're just trying to score points. They've had all kinds of issues. Of course, their former quarterback is in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings and not playing. And also Tyler Van Dyke, the transfer from Miami to Wisconsin, has a torn ACL, and he's going to miss the rest of the season. They play against USC, and Wisconsin, also had a hard time scoring points early on in the year. NC State is turning to C.J. Bailey as starting quarterback. Grayson McCall was knocked out last week with an undisclosed injury against Louisiana Tech. And sources say that Air Force has emerged as a serious target, potentially to move to the AAC. Again, a lot of conference movement going on. The AAC has 14 football schools this season, including a couple of the academies, Army and Navy. So Air Force would make some sense there. Okay, we're down to less than 2 weeks in the regular season for Major League Baseball. National League wild card is going to come right down probably to that series next week between the Braves and Mets. The Mets right now hold a 1-game lead for the wild card, and they walk off the Nats and win 2-1, and the Braves got shut out again. I don't remember the last time the Braves have been shut out so many times in the season. 9-0 last night against the Dodgers. Tigers win again. They beat the Royals. They're now a game and a half back of the final wild card spot in the American League. The Detroit Tigers, yeah, remember them from years and years ago? They're back in the playoff mix. Hey, Luis Ariz of the Padres had a great few months here. Finally struck out for the first time, ending a streak of 141 consecutive plate appearances without striking out. And speaking of striking out, Mike Trout hasn't struck out, hasn't done anything, missed most of the season. He says, he told the LA Times that he is open to moving from center field to right field coming up next season. One big game in the WNBA tonight amongst the schedule, and I'm sure we will be watching. It is the Lynx taking on the Sun on the road. The Sky will visit the Dream. The Aces will take on the Storm. Those are the 3 games. The Aces, of course, are very good. They're big road favorites. We'll keep an eye on a couple of those games as well. We'll be right back with Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, and we'll review what happened on Monday Night Football next.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was playing, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Everyone had him rookie of the year, offensive player of the year. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Eberflus coach of the year. He was terrible.
If he's going to be a success, he's got to play within structure as much as possible. I get it. If the pocket breaks down, throw off the platform. That's fine. But within structure, when the play is there to be made, you need to make it, and he didn't do that.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Matt Lutovsky is with me here from Sporting News. And, as we start to take a look ahead at the week ahead in the NFL, and, there's the Carolina Panthers, Matt, and then there's like the rest of the league here. And for me, it's like I look at these games, and I said this yesterday before the Falcons played Philly, without knowing what was going to happen in the game. I think that for people in this industry, sports pickers, people who are working, for Sporting News, you have to be absolutely petrified at this point laying any amount of decent points in the NFL against any team. I mean, we have really gotten to that point where all the teams look the same. The games are coming right down to the end. Elite quarterback, Gardner Minshew, it doesn't matter. You're laying 2 or 3, okay, maybe so. Laying 6, 7, 8 points in any NFL game, Matt? I mean, these teams just all look alike.
They all look alike, and home road doesn't make a difference. Anything goes nowadays, especially early in the year. We always say early in the season, you're trying to figure things out. We don't really know how good or how bad these teams are, so sort of expect the unexpected. Well, I think that's on steroids now. We don't know what's going on. These guys barely play preseason. They don't practice much. They're all getting injured within, the first game or two. And it's just tough to know how things are going to work out. And laying massive points is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and that appeared to be the case last night. It's like, I'm on social media. Anybody who's telling me they love the Eagles, and again, I understand people are going to get things right or wrong, but what could you possibly gain by loving the Eagles? Like, what has anybody seen to love anyone, maybe outside of the Saints, and I don't even trust that, in the NFL? And so what happens in the game is just like every other game we've seen. It comes down to a play or two that goes wrong for one team, right for another. The things that went wrong for the Falcons, Matt, last week, went wrong for Philadelphia yesterday. Coaching may have cost them the win, yes, but they were not covering that spread at any point, really, throughout the game. So my takeaway from this is I guess I got to find a way to, back the Eagles next week and fade the Falcons. That's just kind of what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And, Falcons are in primetime again next week against the Chiefs. We know primetime games often go under. So that's another wrinkle that you could throw into that. But you're right. As far as that game, I mean, those two teams were even. The Falcons were gashing the Eagles all night against the run. And the only reason it looked like they weren't doing more throwing the balls because Kirk Cousins, didn't look good at all. I'm seeing all these social media clips. He can't push off on his right leg. Look at all these receivers he's missing. Well, I tell you what, on that last drive, he looked pretty good. On the drive, a couple drives before that, he looked pretty good. So I don't know what to make sense. It's drive to drive. It's not even game to game anymore. And you just got to try to figure out what's going on. And it's very, very difficult, especially when you get into these primetime games. We know Thursday nights are wacky. I swear now, Monday nights just as wacky. It's getting tough out there.
No, I mean, every game, and you see the point spreads this week in the NFL, a lot of them are super tight here, and they have to make them like this because when they say the league is a coin flip, they ain't kidding. I mean, how about this one? Houston going to Minnesota this week. If I asked you what the look-ahead line was probably back in June, you would say, oh, Minnesota's probably getting 6-7 points in this game. No, Houston minus 2.5 on the road, total 45.5. And I think we're probably down the same road here again. A lot of people, oh my gosh, how is Houston only a 2.5 point favorite? Well, because there's a good possibility, Matt, that Minnesota wins the game this week. But I mean, you could go ahead and flip the coin. I mean, what do you like in this game? You like anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because it felt like Sunday night Houston was really dominating that game, and it was a one-possession game at the very end. And, Minnesota, obviously, no one expected them to win last week, or not many did. They were at home, but nonetheless, even without Christian McCaffrey, I think people thought the 49ers would handle them. And, you look at it, Minnesota should have won by a lot more. They had some turnovers in their own red zone that cost them points. So, yeah, what do you do with this game? I mean, I like Houston. I'm sort of that, okay, we're going to start to see the cream rise and things are going to start evening out. And I just don't – I mean, Sam Darnold has a body of work, right? That's what I always go back to. At the end of the day, I'm looking at quarterbacks and the body of work. And I understand, hey, no, he's in a great system and he's got Justin Jefferson and this and that. But I just have a hard time believing his sustained level of play is going to stay as high as it has. So I think I like Houston there, but yeah, it's dangerous. I'm rolling the dice. I don't know. Houston's coming off a primetime game. It's not necessarily a short week, but nonetheless, I think teams always get up more for a primetime game. And now they're rolling into a place like Minnesota. And I think it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it will. I mean, Darnold's gotten off to good starts in the past and then faded. Speaking of good starts, two teams off to good starts. Steelers and Chargers. Steelers 2-0. Chargers are completely different than what we're used to. They're just running the ball a ton. And so therefore, we've got a September total in the National Football League with 2 starting quarterbacks at 36.5, Matt, going into this week. I mean, this is a December total when both quarterbacks are hurt, and it's the backups.
Yeah, and neither of them, played the college ball at Iowa. I think that's what's the biggest upset here. I picked against the Steelers last week. I don't think they're very good. I thought, all right, they didn't score a touchdown in week 1. They only scored 1 last week. And I know the Chargers aren't exactly lighting it up on the scoreboard with a high-flying offense, but like you said earlier, they are just running the ball down to people's throats. The thing I worry about here, 2 straight trips out east for the Chargers. I know that might not matter as much as we used to once think it did, but it's getting tougher. And we know Pittsburgh has the defense, and we know they got a home crowd, and it's going to be ugly. It's funny, I looked at that total and thought, it's probably going to be under, which is insane. But I think it's going to be a tough game. I'd give the very, very slight edge to Pittsburgh. But I wouldn't be surprised either way because Jim Harbaugh has his team playing like a Pittsburgh. So I think this will be a competitive game.
Yeah, I think it's unequivocal at this point. We don't know if the Chargers are going to win a Super Bowl or anything like that, but they're going to win more games now with Harbaugh than they did with Brandon Staley. I mean, regardless of their skill position players, it does feel like they're better coached. All right, Matt. Well, we'll flip those coins this week. We'll see what ends up happening in the NFL. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, hopefully we learn more. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I doubt it. All right, let's take a quick time out here on the show. More coming up on NewsWire. We got the SportsGrid sound off. Don't go away.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was playing, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Everyone had him rookie of the year, offensive player of the year. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Eberflus coach of the year. He was terrible.
If he's going to be successful, he's got to play within structure as much as possible. I get it. If the pocket breaks down, throw off the platform. That's fine. But within structure, when the play is there to be made, you need to make it, and he didn't do that.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Time to dive into the latest in college football. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, yesterday was the weekly press conference across college football, and Billy Napier, the head coach of the Florida Gators, who has been rumored to be on the outs after their performance against Texas A&M, held his press conference yesterday. There were rumors on social media that he was already fired or gone and buyouts. Well, apparently none of that actually happened. Florida's on the road. They'll take on Mississippi State this week. But naturally, Napier's job security seems to be very thin indeed, and was asked about that yesterday.
Have there been any discussions or you've been told anything about your future?
No, none.
Do you feel like there's still a path to earn a fourth season if the team can get it together and
100%.
get on a roll?
100%.
Were you given any assurances like when you got here? Because it's a 7-year deal. And
Right.
You've talked a lot about the process, the rebuild, the challenges of it, that you were going to be given X amount of time to do this.
Yeah, I mean, these are all hypothetical scenarios. I mean, I think for me, I'm going to try to model what I would expect from our players, okay? And some of those things I just talked about, I think that's the whole key, is that as a staff and throughout the organization, we have to do our part to model what we would expect from the players and want from the players. And that, for me, is total focus on the next opportunity to improve, right? So, we're going to put the game to bed today from Saturday, and then it's about doing my absolute best to prepare the team to play next Saturday. And we can't live in the shoulda, coulda, woulda, if, then, all that,
Yeah, I really think right now Billy Napier is trying to do his best, his best face there, but it's got to be tough being the head coach there after a couple of really weak performances against Miami and Texas A&M. Meanwhile, Nebraska football is back in a big way. Matt Rule is the head coach, got a good quarterback in Dylan Raiola. A lot of comparisons being made to Patrick Mahomes, not just for his play, but how he looks, and he was finally asked about that at a press conference yesterday.
A lot of people think I try to be just like him, but honestly, I grew up, I played baseball, never liked football. As a kid, I always wore glasses. I've had this haircut since 6th, 7th grade maybe, and I didn't really know about Mahomes then. And, I mean, I had my own little kick to it. So, I mean, it's not completely like him, but I guess if that's what people want to say, that guy's one of the best, so it's cool. But I just try to do mimic my game after, myself. But it also, if you're trying to get to where you want to get to, you have to see and know what it takes to get there. And I think he's done more than enough to see what it takes. And it's just learning football. But yeah, just try to do my thing. And hair, I guess, looks like it.
Did you see the movie Anchorman? Remember when Ron Burgundy says, "I don't believe you"? That's what we needed right there. Finally, let's check in with the college football game of the week. It's USC, Michigan, two teams ranked in the top 20. Our very own Joe Lisi getting ready for his Saturday morning show as a preview.
Huge battle taking place this coming Saturday in the Big House between top-ranked USC and the Michigan Wolverines. In the offseason, Michigan was as high as 8.5-point favorites heading into this matchup. Fast forward to week number 3, after the Wolverines lost to Texas and after they defeated Arkansas State by only 10 points, the Wolverines are now catching 6 points heading into this ballgame. Sharon Moore is now named new starting quarterback Alex Orji. That will get the nod over Davis Warren. Warren struggled last week with 2 critical interceptions in the 10-point win over Arkansas State. Miller Moss and that USC offense are hitting on all cylinders, averaging 303 passing yards per game heading into this ballgame, and will have an extra week of preparation after their Week 2 win over Utah State. The biggest strength for USC has been in run support. They're holding opposing offenses to only 100 rushing yards per game. I think this game goes right down to the wire. USC might win it, but I like Michigan to keep it close and cover the number. Now, Craig, back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Joe. We'll check in with the guys Saturday morning, another edition of Pro Football Today on Sunday, and then, of course, on Saturday, leading you up to college football as well. All right. Let's take a quick time out here on the show. We're going to have an opportunity to legalize sports betting in Missouri later this year. Will it happen? Sam McQuillan weighs in on that next.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was playing! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Everyone had him rookie of the year, offensive player of the year. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Eberflus coach of the year. He was terrible.
If he's going to be successful, he's got to play within structure as much as possible. I get it. If the pocket breaks down, throw off the platform. That's fine. But within structure, when the play is there to be made, you need to make it, and he didn't do that.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We've got Sam McQuillan with us from Legal Sports Report. And Sam, it has been a slow year across the United States for news on legalizing sports betting. And I guess partially the reason why is because it was such an incredible first few years when they repealed PASPA and all of these different states started legalized sports gambling. So last year, the big story was Florida, obviously getting it, and the Hard Rock, back and forth, everything else. But it does appear that our story to cover in the final quarter of the year is Missouri, with it going on the ballot in November, but it's now being met with people who do not want this legalized. So I guess the question becomes is not is it going to get legalized or not, Sam, but what does this opposition really look like?
Yeah, definitely, Craig. You're spot on with, the more states that have legalized, the less you have left to legalize, unless we would add more states to the 50 we already have. But it's been a slow year for companies. They're kind of focusing on Missouri, as you mentioned, which will bring sports betting to the ballot in November. Now, ahead of November, we have some opposition that's popped up. We hadn't really had much either side for or against this ballot. But as we get closer to November, I imagine we'll get more and more of this kind of groups coming out, opposing it or being for it. So the group that came out against it, surprisingly, is actually Caesars. They donated $4 million to a newly formed political action committee called Missourians Against the Deceptive Online Gambling Amendment, which was obviously formed to have commercials or pass out pamphlets, whatever it may be, any sort of information that would have people vote against this ballot. Now, you might ask, why Caesars? Don't they want sports betting in Missouri? And the answer to that question is yes, they do want sports betting in Missouri, but they want it on their terms. As the language is written in this amendment, it would allow each of the state's casinos to have one sports betting license and also create two more, which would be called untethered, basically no requirements that you have a partnership with a land-based casino or a racetrack, which we've seen a lot of other states do. So this is a departure from previous attempts to legalize in Missouri, which would have given each casino multiple licenses. There's about 6 in Missouri, so that would have created up to 12, 15 sports books, each of which would be controlled by the casinos and no untethered ones. So the PAC says this question was written by and for the financial benefit of out-of-state corporations and sponsors and funders, which would probably be FanDuel and DraftKings, who are the two sports books that have donated to the campaign to legalize. They've donated $11.5 million to get this on the ballot, to get it passed by the people, to create an amendment. So Caesars is the first. It's pretty notable. Caesars is the first company that owns a casino or owns sports betting to oppose it. Others like BetMGM, MGM doesn't have any casinos in the state. They haven't gotten involved yet. So pretty notable that Caesars is coming out here and sort of directly opposing FanDuel and DraftKings. Now, if you ask me whether or not this will pass, I'd have to lean on yes, because there's more money coming in on one direction. I know Missouri's wanted to legalize sports betting for a while. If sort of the only argument that's being put out there is by a casino that just wants more control over it, it'd be sort of a tough hill to climb. But you never know. Missouri's been a tough one for a while. So we'll check back in a few weeks, I'm sure, when more money comes the other way, and have to see in November.
Yeah, no, look, this is going to be the big story for us at the end of the year to see if this ends up happening. All right, so we know that FanDuel and DraftKings, especially DraftKings in particular, we know are upset with the tax rate in some of these different states, including New York, above 50%, some other places 30%, 40%. But Sam, the interesting story, and I know that you guys wrote about this at Legal Sports Report, is it appears as though they're going to try and make that money up in some way. They tried once by, DraftKings tried once by essentially saying that they were going to do something that they got walked back on. But do they really think, Sam, that they're going to get away with like raising their minus 110s to minus 130s with nobody noticing and things like? Because there are other options for people to take to, and I also wonder if the competitors are to DraftKings and FanDuel, if they choose to do this, just kind of stick it to them by saying, hey, look, same bets, you guys are charging minus 130, we're only minus 110. I don't understand how they think they're going to get away with this.
Yeah, so the companies themselves have not outright came out and said anything about adjusting the prices. Now, they do have a lobbying group called the Sports Betting Alliance, which represents all of the companies and has essentially threatened, hey, states, if you raise your tax rates, like they did in Illinois when they were fighting the tax raise there, it's going to make prices worse for the customer. So essentially saying the companies are going to do this. The companies themselves have not actually come out and said anything. Another group that has been very vocal on this issue is Wall Street. They have a lot of stake in the game. They don't want these companies to be losing $200 million a year from just one state raising its taxes. So the firms have done a lot of research. One called Truist came out this week and said that if FanDuel and DraftKings raise their prices across the board, that's pretty interesting, not just in a single state, but across the nation, they could add about $240 million in revenue, which sort of fits perfectly in that hole of revenue that they're projecting just from the Illinois tax increase next year. Pretty interesting that it's not a state-by-state measure. They've kind of threatened that in the past, or at least talked about it, but it seems like it would be difficult just in the market, the way you market your odds, to say, hey, in New York, it's minus 140, but in a state like New Jersey, it's plus 110. It seems like that would be pretty difficult to do. They have never really gotten into why they might do it or why they might not do it. Now, overseas in Germany, sort of similar thing has happened in the past where the country made a tax on handle and operators dealt with it by passing the cost down to the customers there. The operator that now leads there actually got around it by just driving people towards more profitable bets. More profitable bets lately have been parlays and same-game parlays, which these companies have repeatedly driven people to. So if I had to guess what they would do, I would just guess that they'll try to drive more people towards those more profitable bets and hold off on raising prices for now. But it is something that sort of is in the back that's being threatened and being thought about and pushed by at least some investors in Wall Street.
Okay. Well, look, I again, to know that people won't notice this is silly. So it just depends. Like a minus 112 instead of a minus 110, Sam, maybe they could get away with that. Minus 113, 15, but raising it significantly, there are a lot of different options. And it's interesting that coalition is involved because it sounds like to me it would have to be everyone agreeing to do it as opposed to just one or two of the sports betting companies. All right, finally, NFL. Try to make heads or tails of what's going on this year, Sam, amongst all years. The only thing that I can tell you, and I've said this earlier in the show, I'm going to say it again, is that laying points in the NFL above like 1 or 2 is a losing proposition. These teams are very similar, if not the same. The look-ahead lines, not look-ahead, for this week, Sam, there's only one team that's a 7-point favorite in the NFL this week. Only one. That's it. Everybody else under. I think that's the big adjustment we're going to have to see from the books.
Yeah, you see the big reaction there. People probably hesitant to bet on teams getting more than 7 points. Obviously, the Ravens had a huge upset this past week. The Cowboys got destroyed by the Saints. Underdogs went 10-5-1 against the spread and 8-8 straight up after last night, after Philly faltered to Atlanta. So it's pretty interesting to see the sportsbooks adjust the spreads down. They had a great week, according to McQuillan, which estimates that they held about 16% on all bets, which is double what you would usually expect in a week. That bounces back from a really bad week one. The public was on the favorite in 14 of the 16 games. So obviously the sportsbooks cleaned up there as well. It's really interesting to see how these odds move throughout the week. Obviously, there's about only one game with a huge spread. We'll see how high that goes, and we'll see if people bet it down before next week. But definitely an interesting start to the season in terms of betting and what the books are making.
Yeah, San Francisco right now, 7-point road favorites. That's the biggest one at the Rams. And the Rams, of course, have like a ton of injuries, so that does make sense. But so does San Francisco, too. It's a crazy league. All right, Sam, great to catch up with you. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks a lot, Craig. Talk to you next week.
All right. Well, coming up, one of the bigger lines of the week is the Jets. They're favored by 6.5 points over the New England Patriots. So we'll bring in Adam Kaufman next, and he'll weigh in on that. We'll go into the AFC East as well. Don't go away.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was playing, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think like that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Everyone had him rookie of the year, offensive player of the year. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Eberflus coach of the year. He was terrible.
If he's going to be success, he's got to play within structure as much as possible. I get it. If the pocket breaks down, throw off the platform. That's fine. But within structure, when the play's there to be made, you need to make it, and he didn't do that.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Usually Tuesdays in the past were take a breath, and then Wednesdays start up with your NFL talk. Now it's all right, we've moved on. Thursday's coming up here, Patriots and Jets. So Adam Kaufman, he got like 8 hours sleep the last 7 days. He's ready already for this game coming up on Thursday night. I know you are. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. It's great to catch up with you.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room. People who may be watching and seeing how I'm dressed and the Boston skyline behind me. I don't want you to just assume I'm a Patriots fan. Really, I'm just a big fan of Dave Sharapan. I feel like if he was coming on to talk about one game, he would look something like this. But yeah, I just think I think this Thursday, Jets home opener, it's a fascinating game, really, for both teams with the way both have started off this year. And I know you were just having a conversation in the previous segment about how underdogs, were so dominant over the course of week 2, and we saw 7 outright wins by dogs, including, of course, that Eagles collapse at the end of last night. The Patriots themselves, they knocked off the biggest favorite on the board in Cincinnati in week 1. They very nearly and really should have beaten the Seahawks. That game went to overtime in week 2, and the Patriots catching 6.5 points at New York, or technically in New Jersey, here for this week 3 game. I'm not sitting here saying, of course, the Patriots are going to go out and win, but I do expect they're going to keep it close. So I would be very comfortable taking the points in this one.
Yeah, I think as it pertains to New England, my opinion has not changed. I know you're not going to like hearing this. I still think the Patriots are going to have the worst record in the NFL at the end of the season. I could care less as to what I saw the first 2 weeks. I still feel that way. Especially now that Carolina's finally gone to a guy that can win games 13-12. So that's going to ensure them winning like 3 games or 4. But the skill positions, the coaching is obviously fantastic in New England. That goes without saying. That's what we're seeing. There's a big change, which is crazy from Belichick. And honestly, I hate to say it, it feels like Belichick's last year maybe just threw his arms up because Mayo was just coaching a lot harder, making a lot more sound decisions. But what I'm going to say is, Adam, eventually, as they say, the worm is going to turn. We're going to have 17 weeks in the NFL, and 9 of the weeks the underdogs are going to cover more, and 8 of the weeks the favorites are probably going to cover more. So it's not to say that the Jets can't do it this week, but I am with you. Like, until I'm shown otherwise in the NFL, if the line is above 2 or 3, I'm just not bleeping with it, man. Like, it's either I'm taking the other team or I'm waiting until there is some separation. Like, Adam, what is the big separation between the Patriots and Jets? They have a much better quarterback. They have a couple of much better wide receivers. They may have 1 or 2 players on the defensive end. They play 11 guys at the same time. And if there's only 1 or 2 that are different and a team is getting a touchdown, that's the way I got to look until somebody shows me something else.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I do look at these 2 teams and say, okay, if you go category by category, position by position, other than maybe coaching staff, which is, I guess, an indictment of Robert Saleh, you have to give the edge in pretty much every category to the Jets. You do. But you also just look at what we've seen this year, and I don't think that can be discounted. You can discount, the Patriots are 6-1 against the Jets even since Tom Brady left. Well, look at who the quarterbacks were on both sides, quite frankly. The Zach Wilsons and, Joe Flacco was there for a hot minute. Tommy White, what was his first? Who cares?
Mike White.
These guys are gone. It's Aaron Rodgers. Mike White, thank you. Aaron Rodgers is there now. Now, has Rodgers looked like Hall of Fame Aaron Rodgers thus far? He hasn't, but, he's only a couple games in after basically missing 2 years of football on the calendar. And so he's going to slowly find his way. He wasn't great against the Niners, wasn't a problem necessarily, but wasn't great. And then in week 2 was marginally better. Garrett Wilson is, clearly the best receiver on either team. And Alan Lazard has had something of a resurgence. It's just, again, going back to what we've seen, the Jets got destroyed by a much, much better team in week 1, and they had to eke out a win in week 2, and, credit them, they did so. And again, the Patriots are playing superior competition in a very, very tough way, to where, again, I expect this game to probably go under for starters. And second to that, I just think the Patriots they're live for an upset. They're absolutely live for an upset. I don't see how you couldn't say they're not. But I just think they're going to keep it close. I think we're going to see a tightly contested game, where I do look at the Patriots as far as finding a strength, and I think their defense has been excellent, clearly. Gerard Mayo, like you said, he's coaching his butt off. The loss of Juwan Bentley now is a little bit problematic, but guys like Kyle Duggar and Keon Williams, over 200 yards rushing so far here in the young season. I think that he is going to have a great game. I would probably favor him over Breece Hall in this particular matchup. What the Patriots can do beyond that, I don't know, because we have seen the woeful inconsistency of the passing game in large part because of a terrible offensive line that really struggles to protect Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, and in addition to that, look, I think the Jets are the better team in this matchup. But people, if they watch that game against the Titans, if the Jets fall down on the 3 and kick a field goal, they don't cover that game, and they did. And I think that's being factored into this spread. It seems high to me, 6.5. All right, NFL. Here are the guys who are hurt. Adam, you tell me biggest impact player. Seems like the Rams have taken the biggest brunt of it thus far, if not the San Francisco 49ers. So Kupp and Nakua both out. Looks like Kupp is headed to IR. McCaffrey on IR, Pacheco on IR, Deebo Samuel going to be out a couple of weeks. Now flipping over to a couple quarterbacks, Tua is going to be out, I would guess, a few weeks at least. Jordan Love could be back as soon as this week, but looks like next week they're targeting A.J. Brown this week and next. Mostert, Addison to a lesser degree. Is it fair to say, I mean, San Francisco just feels like they have more talent than the Rams, so it's like for some reason, I'm just not as worried about them, but it feels like the Rams are in trouble.
Absolutely. And I have a Super Bowl ticket on the Rams that I may as well tear up and use it to, wipe up the dog's mess on the floor or something like that. That ticket is not going anywhere without Kupp and without Nakua and a banged up Stafford to boot. How much is Kyron Williams going to do by himself? The Niners, I just think they can kind of tread water, and eventually they're going to be fine when those guys return.
All right, Adam, enjoy the game Thursday. Thanks again for coming on.
I'll try.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Pacheco, but he had that program was already going there.
Only on SportsGrid.
Talk about your freshman year at Alabama and even the redshirt year that got you ready to perform at the highest level.
You had to learn a lot about humility, about being patient to play at Alabama. And you still knew that you're going to have a shot to win a championship every year. And so that's the line. And so I think that's what's really missing with today's football. You got NIL, you got social media.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Everyone had him rookie of the year, offensive player of the year. Bears are going to the Super Bowl. Eberflus coach of the year. He was terrible.
If he's going to be a success, he's got to play within structure as much as possible. I get it. If the pocket breaks down, throw off the platform. That's fine. But within structure, when the play is there to be made, you need to make it, and he didn't do that.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Well, I think we've given out the theme of the show, so it's probably only fitting that we end it here as well on NewsWire. It's time now for some last licks. Well, as we've talked about, the National Football League sort of upside down in the first 2 weeks. But honestly, should this really come as a surprise to any of you? I guess the outcomes winning outright for these underdogs is a little bit surprising. You know, the Raiders going to Baltimore and winning, yes. The Saints crushing the Cowboys at home, yes. A little surprising fare. But basically, all the 6 biggest favorites in the National Football League last week did not cover. Now, I am probably the last person on this entire network who's going to say, I told you about anything. But if you've watched me on these shows, and I've been on this network for years, I'm going to tell you the same thing. It is an underdog league. The league of players, they're all about the same. The quarterbacks at the top are a little bit better than the ones in the middle, and the ones in the middle are probably a little bit better than the ones at the bottom. And then the other 10 players that play on each side of the ball, there's a couple of real good ones, like the Pittsburgh has one named Watt, and a couple of other teams, like a guy like Crosby on the Raiders, and all the rest of the players are the same. That's it. That's what this league is. And so if that's what this league is, why should it come as a surprise to anybody when a team is favored by 7 or 8 points and they lose? Because it's week to week. That's what we have become. That's what the NFL wants. And by the way, I have no problem with it. But for anybody on any network giving any opinion of a game where a team is 6.5 points or 7 points and come on and say, I think this team is going to kill them, you can think that, but it's not true. It is not true anymore in the NFL. This is the way that it is set up. It's set up for parity. And why 100 schools in college can only produce 20 good quarterbacks in the world is still beyond me. I don't know the answer to that. It seems to me that if there were more good quarterbacks, we may get better play. But as long as there's only like a dozen good ones in the NFL, those are the separated teams from the rest. And that's about it. Meanwhile, in college football, you got 2 quarterbacks who are no stranger to the NFL because they could be playing in it for several years, but they've chosen to stay in college. It feels like this is the movie Old School. Cam Rising, who is back, he should be playing this week, I believe, for Utah, and Alan Bowman for Oklahoma State are a combined like almost 50 years old. They're older than starting quarterbacks this week in the NFL. And there's simply a reason. Bears Colts. Okay, so there's simply a reason for this. Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams. The reason is college is a lot of fun, and you can now be paid to play in college and get paid more than you would in the NFL. Like, this is another thing that is not rocket science. If Cam Rising on an NIL deal could get $1 million and he's not an NFL quarterback, why would he go to the NFL? Just try and get as many years as you can in college and get paid. Folks, you're going to see more and more of this as we go. The quarterback from FSU has played on like 4 different colleges already. Clemson, Oregon, everywhere else. He'll play for somebody else next year. Maybe he'll like be hurt like now and then get another exemption for next year. It's a new day in the NFL and college football as well. All right, finally, we end on a light note. If you go to Citi Field in the upcoming future, you have an opportunity to purchase a seat. Not that guy, the Grimace, but you can actually purchase a Grimace seat. That's right. There is one seat now located in Citi Field because of the great run that the Mets have had throughout the season. Once the Grimace showed up at that field, it is a purple seat. And yeah, you can actually sit there if you like. I don't know. Is it a cost extra, Frank? I didn't even look. Does it cost extra money to sit in the Grimace seat? It's going to be a hard seat to get, would be my guess. But check out StubHub. Maybe they have like a little color when you look at the seat map. All right, that'll do it for the show today. Coming up next, we've got the early line at 12 p.m. Eastern, running all the way through 3 o'clock Eastern today. I was on that show, so you'll get a chance to see me talking some baseball in about an hour from now. In addition to that, we've got Pharrell Coast to Coast. He's back from Las Vegas at 3 o'clock Eastern. Game time decisions, in-game live, game day. And then tonight we have Sports Rage with Gabe. By the way, for those of you who do not have the SportsGrid app, it's a really great companion to all of the programming that we have here. So perhaps if this is a show for you or some of the other shows, just take out your phone and scan this QR code. And by the way, the app is completely free. It has picks against the spread, clips from our shows. Sometimes maybe you're seeing those on social media. If you want to catch up with all of the things that we talk about throughout the day and night, download the SportsGrid app. It is free on iOS and Android as well. Also, thanks to our director, Luke, and thanks to our producer, Frank. He's getting ready for the big game Thursday night at the Meadowlands. They still call it the Meadowlands? With the Jets and the New England Patriots. I'll be back with you for another edition of the show tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on Shohei Ohtani's pursuit of 50-50. That's the big story in baseball tonight. And a whole lot more in the WNBA. See you tomorrow. Next edition of NewsWire.